How you doing? Rather than write up a report on the seminar around the Coalesce program, I just said I'd run a short video just to give you an overview of what it's all about. This seminar was held, let me see, the 13th of June, thereabouts, up in Dublin. It was run by the Irish Research Council in collaboration with a number of industry partners, just to bring people up to speed with this new program for research. Okay, so this is just an overview of the day. It's not. So it was Deirdre Quinn who is leading this program from the Irish Research Council's perspective, and the program itself there's two strands to it: the Strand 1 and Strand 2. Within each of those strands there are sub-strands, but Strand 1 is, I suppose, focusing quite a lot on domestic research and policy, whereas Strand 2 is in collaboration with Irish Aid and looks at overseas development and collaboration around overseas development. Again, the presentation began with an overview of the purpose of the Research Council. I have to say, in the narrative surrounding this, a lot of the emphasis was placed on universities. And IoTs weren't mentioned, HEAs weren't mentioned, and that wasn't intentional. I don't think they were not mentioned in order to exclude, but it was just that there is a presumption, I felt, in the way that material was presented, that the university sector was that there was a priority there. Now, technically, that's not the case, but the vast majority of people, I think, in the room were from the universities rather than being from the IoTs. There were a few people from the IoTs, but not that many. Okay, so really what Coalesce is, it's a merger of two previous initiatives, the Horizon Initiative, not Horizon 2020, but the Horizon Initiative, and the policy initiatives that had been in place in the past. So really the idea is looking at collaboration. It's similar to the Caroline project, if anybody's familiar with that. Caroline project was a collaborative research project between the Irish Research Council and international NGOs. So it was in Irish Aid was involved, but Caroline was specifically set up, and the structure of Caroline is that it must be a collaborative project between an NGO, either an international NGO or an NGO, and a research institute. The other thing that was emphasized is how important this was. This research is, or how important certain policy documents are. The National Development Plan being one of them, and then the Sustainable Development Goals being the second. The fourth thing that was emphasized was Campus Engage, and there were people from Campus Engage there who spoke about that as an initiative. It was presented from the top table as being an important initiative in terms of the type of research that this type of fund was looking to support. So research which is engaged with local communities, collaborative, and embedded research. There was a woman from Campus Engage who spoke extensively about it, but again, the emphasis that I would have taken from her presentation was very much she was looking at the universities and used the universities, spoke about universities, and in Campus Engage being a university initiative, even though, again, it's not the IoTs, or many of the IoTs are involved in Campus Engage. Okay, so these two, the National Development Plan and the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, so the thing about this particular initiative is that it's in partnership with a range of different organizations who have specific needs and specific interests in particular areas of policy and research. Irish Aid is the major partner in Strand 2, and then you have the Central Statistics Office and these various different agencies. So the priorities around the call, and this is Part B of Strand 1, particularly focuses on the particular requirements of these partners. The particular research requirements. Okay, so the deadlines. The first deadline is the end of June. Anybody that's interested has to have an expression of interest in by the 28th of June. No, if you miss that deadline, you will not be considered. And then there is a computer system that you access, and you can start putting up your proposals on the 2nd of July. It goes through, then by the end of the year, it's anticipated that the outcomes will be announced and that projects should begin by the end of 2018. It's probably unlikely that they will, but she said that that's their target. It may be early in the new year before before project starts are approved. The thing about the expressions of interest, there is it's an extract an abstract is needed about your research, and you need to have a sense of what partners might be involved. You don't have to have your partners fully secured at that stage. So the objective: engage, cultivate, reward, and incentivize. So it's very much about getting researchers involved in research. The funding is sort of reasonably limited as these funds go, but it's really seen as being seed funding for new researchers and new research. Sorry, this isn't. It's funny. Yeah, okay. So your research has to progress towards the NSOs and their national strategic outcomes, and they're in the National Development Plan. It is about funding partnerships, it's about collaboration, it's about policy making and influencing policy, and it's about looking at new opportunities. It's also about developing capacity in terms of our national research capabilities. So these are the national strategic outcomes, the national strategic outcomes that are contained in the National Development Plan. So a lot of they're very broad, but any research must address one or more of these. I'm trying to move on here. Yeah, okay. So Strand 1 then, this is the national call, and this talks about the type of funding that is available. So IRC itself has so there can be funding up to €120,000. They didn't say exactly how much is in the fund, but they will be funding it would seem maybe 10, 15, 20 projects here. So there is a couple of €1 million being made available to this particular fund by the IRC. Then individual partners have priorities and they have particular titles. So that's Strand 1B, C, D and E. And the indication was, and this was by no means a certainty, was that the €100,000 funding limit would go to one project. So the likelihood is that each of the funders will fund a single project. They might fund two, but if you're pitching it, the pitch would need to be between €50,000 and €100,000. That's really, I suppose, how it seemed to me that they were anticipating it being. So each of the agencies has their own priorities. And that includes DCYA, DCHG. So the DCHG one was very much around biodiversity. The others are maybe a little bit more flexible. DCYA, it was very much about better outcomes for better futures, and also the existing research that's out there in relation to growing up in Ireland, in particular, that research. Okay, so these are the others. So when you're applying for Strand 1, you can apply to the general fund, which is the IRC, or you can apply to any of these sub-strands, 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, 1D, up to 1I, which is looking at the Geological Survey of Ireland priorities. Okay, so eligibility. This is key, is that the principal investigator must have a contract with the organization. They don't have to be a permanent employee, but they must have a contract of some description with the organization at the time of the award of the funding to be able to prove that they will be employed over the course of the 2 years or 1 year, whatever the duration of the project is. The second thing is that the PI has to have had a doctoral award in or before the 1st of November 2016, and that you cannot have receipt as a PI of any other Irish Research Council funding up to this date. So it is really to seed new researchers. The second thing is you must have time to deliver the project. You must show that you have, and that the PI, while they may take on people to support them in the research, they will have personal academic responsibility for the delivery of the research outcomes. You can apply for more than one strand, and you must indicate, if you are successful in more than one strand, that you have the capacity to deliver in both. Okay, so this is the evaluation criteria that they're going to be using. Again, they're fairly standard. The thing that they emphasized very, very strongly was the capacity of your research to influence policy. So other than that, the marking system is quite straightforward. Okay, that was strand 1. Strand 2 is looking at international development and looking at looking at the securing of the Sustainable Development Goals. It is really, I suppose, it's really apparent that the Sustainable Development Goals and the achievement of Sustainable Development Goals has become an integral part of government policy, both domestically and in terms of our overseas development programs. So increasingly we're going to hear about the requirements to report on and deliver on the Sustainable Development Goals. So new connections, collaboration, very much about the STEAM or the STEM agenda, and then again new opportunities for research and partnership. And as with Strand 1, the need to impact policy. These are the Sustainable Development Goals. There's 17 of them. There is goal 17 around partnership is one that I suppose they did say was important. But you can address any of them. The other thing, okay, so the eligibility, the criteria are quite similar to the criteria are quite similar to the Strand 1 in terms of eligibility. But here's the interesting thing about Strand 2 is that it is encouraging interdisciplinary collaboration. So it's looking at there being two applicants, one a primary applicant and a secondary applicant, and they want the primary applicant to come from a humanities or social sciences backgrounds, and they want the secondary applicant to be from a STEM background. So that's really, it's quite interesting as an approach. And the primary applicant should be have the contract in a similar way to Strand 1. Okay, so the other thing is that within this program, there is also a requirement. I'm just going to look at it here. Yeah. Yeah, it's the same as the first, but there is sorry, I'm going to go back here for a second. The second aspect of this is that they do want projects within this strand to include researchers from overseas, and particularly they want researchers who are, I'm going to just try to find it here where they've put it. Okay. Yeah, okay, so this is it, yeah. So they want applicants to create collaborations with countries that are part of the Irish aid development program. So they would be, there's a list of, I can't remember, 10 countries, most of which are in sub-Saharan Africa, and also Palestine and Vietnam are also in that list. So the partners need to be in one of those countries. And again, the conditions surrounding the third country partners are similar to the conditions around the partners or the PIs in Ireland. They have to have contracts and they have to be in a position to complete the research in the time frame that the research has been submitted for. Okay, so all of that really relates to the eligibility. Again, the lead applicant needs to have significant postdoctoral experience in research, needs to have 2 experiences as a principal investigator, experience in collaboration and research with consortia, international. So it's really, I suppose, it's an important, it's research for experience or early career researchers, so in the first 5 or 6 years of their research careers. The criteria that are being used are quite similar to the criteria that have been used in the in Strand 1. And yeah, so that's really more or less the overview. Mary McCarthy gave an overview, she's from Irish Aid, of what the requirements were for Irish Aid. I don't think I'm going to go into that in an enormous amount of detail, but the slides are here. I'll go through them. I won't talk, I'll just flick through them. If you do want to look at it. So it's very much talking about being tied into Irish Aid's strategy. Now, the strategy is being reviewed at the moment, as well as the Sustainable Development Goals, that there are changes at the moment, that these are the thematic priorities within Irish Aid. And that's it. Okay, so that's it. I did get a sense that it was a really good opportunity. The likelihood is that this particular funding mechanism is going to be in place for the next 5 years. So while there may not be projects set up for it now, because I mean the expressions of interest have to be in by the end of this month or before the end of this month, that it might be something, or it could be something that we could build up to over the next couple of years. Yeah, so that's it. Okay, thank you.